Okay, everybody ready for this? You excited to? Let's do this. Let's start with having each of you introduce yourself and just tell us how long that you have been on the Life Center team and what role you're currently serving in. Want to start over here?
Sure.
Bobby?
I'm Bobby Gruenewald. Today is my 22nd anniversary on the team, on the Electric team.
Wow.
And I'm a part of our directional leadership team with Pastor Craig and two other leaders that oversee the church. And I'm also the CEO of the YouVersion Bible app.
So I wanted to see what you said about yourself, because I really want to honor you today. For those who would not know, and most of you do not know perhaps, that Pastor Bobby Gruenewald is the creator of, is that the right word? The Bible app. Yes, that's right, the one that is on your phone right now. Started So putting it in perspective, is it 500 million, 700 million? How many downloads are there today?
So there's three apps. There's the Bible app for kids, and a new one we have called Bible App Lite for Africa and some different countries. And there's over 700 million unique devices that have been started.
Wow.
And it's Bobby's 22nd anniversary of getting paid, but the first few years he worked full-time and wouldn't accept a paycheck, so it's more like 25 real years. So that's just the kind of guy that he is. We made him take a paycheck because he had to.
So Pastor Craig, I think you would be best at being able to frame this before we move on, just a little more about Bobby.
So Bobby created, built, and sold 2 tech companies when he was in college. And he was volunteering for the church, looking for his next kind of business venture. He was playing keyboard. He had a real good style. He would play go da-da-da-da, and that was back when we did not pay our band members, and he was the best free one that we could get.
Unpaid keyboard
Yeah, he was the
player
reason we started.
For a reason.
He was the reason we started paying them. And so he started as a volunteer and started adding value in so many different ways that he just kept showing up and started working full-time for free. And there's more to it, but he really came to a point where he had unlimited business opportunities, and still does, and made a very hard, very painful, selfless decision to enter full-time ministry down low in the organization with no visibility, and worked his way up through integrity, hard work, and just adding value to being now in the directional leadership team of the church. And my closest friend, my workout buddy, my flying buddy, the whole thing. And so if there's parts of Life.Church that maybe you heard about in the early years, Church Online, first church to ever do that was his idea. Giving away free resources back when that wasn't done, that was his idea. YouVersion, that was his idea. Hiring him, that was my idea.
Hey, so I just want to tell all the leading second people who are in the room, Pastor Bobby is your standard. That's we want a bunch of those. Like if we could, when you get too talented to actually stay on the team, think of Bobby. Okay, you guys, please introduce yourself.
My name is Jenn McCarty, and I've been on the team almost 13 years, and I get the honor of leading Pastor Craig's office.
My name's Kyle Kutter, been on the team almost 11 years, and I'm a central group leader. Pastor Craig mentioned that earlier, and I lead all of our digital technology, all the way we use it to build, support the church, as well as how we resource other churches, a ministry called Church to Church, things like the Craig Groeschel Leadership Podcast. So how from a local church we can continue just be a resource to others. So I'm with my people today.
Thank you all for being here, all of you who are part of the team. And I mentioned earlier that Amy was here with us and made a couple of comments about that, but genuinely, from a sincere place in my heart, when I found out that you were coming, it really made my day. Mine too. Craig said his too. It's just rare. I wanted to just say this. I mean, Pastor Craig goes a lot of places, and I've seen him at other places, and he's been here a few times, and I'm so glad that you're here with us today. So glad you're here.
I'm so thankful to be here. I cannot believe that I missed it the 2 other times Craig has been here. Thank you for having him and having me, and wow, I'm already just so blessed and ministered to and excited.
Thank you. I want to start with the 2 of you, and I'd like to just ask if I could a little bit about some of the backstory. Life.Church began in 1996 in a 2-car garage, and we happened to be able to get a few memories, some photos. Okay. Not sure you knew that we were doing this, but I think we have a few pictures.
Pleated pants for the glory of Jesus, come on, with a braided belt.
Look at that.
Look how that name is spelled.
Is that about 2000?
That's misspelled.
There's no E.
Yeah, there's.
What are you holding?
That's the garage, right?
Yep.
That's it.
Handsome dude. You're.
Yeah, I didn't put that little sticker up there behind me, but I probably put the lattice up there just so you know.
Isn't that awesome? Okay, and I don't think Pastor Craig would say this. I'm going to say it. It is the Life.Church is the largest church in North America, 44 locations across 12 states. Best I can tell, largest church. And so from that beginning to here, the 2 of you have navigated through a lot of challenges. And our goal is today just to talk about some of those challenges and some of the things that have been a part of that. But I want to begin with your family, if I could. You know, six children is a lot of children. And I want to just maybe start by asking you a bit about them, and they've grown up now, but are they a part of the church team and staff, and are they still in the working of ministry? I'd love to hear you guys unwrap that a little bit.
It's miraculous. Every salvation. I just think we're all miracles. So let's remember that. And it just is incredible. So, talk about the privilege. So, yes, they're all now serving Jesus in the local church at Life.Church. Our oldest daughter is a Life Kids pastor at the Oklahoma City campus. We're so proud of her for, she just got a promotion there. And then our second daughter, Mandy, her husband is on staff. She was on staff, but her health, God took her another road, so she's ministering from home and with helping people with chronic illness. And then our third daughter, Anna, her husband is a youth pastor at one of our locations, and she's a stay-home mama. And then our fourth son, Sam, is now a youth pastor at our Moore location. And our fifth son, Stephen, is engaged. It's breaking my heart, but it's great. And
yeah, she gave away our daughters easily and made me like a mush puddle. And now her baby boy's getting married. It's hard on her. I'm like, get him out of the house, sit him on.
yeah. He's a youth pastor, an associate youth pastor, and our baby girl Joy is also associate youth pastor. And it's amazing because as a mom when I was a mom of littles, my heart's prayer and desire, we were called to homeschool. It was a calling of God before we even had kids. And my little prayers when they were little was just that they would be raised up with a strong foundation and make a difference in their generation. And now I'm just pinching myself. So it's a miracle, though. Thank you.
So what about the family dynamics in the sense of the kids are growing up and they're growing up attending the church and then they somehow come into working for the church? What was that process like for you? How did you guys handle all of that?
I'll answer that. It's probably one of my biggest praise reports, and it's complicated to say. But when we tell you that they're all working there, they don't all have guaranteed jobs there. I have a son-in-law that had to interview probably 4 or 5 times before he got hired. My oldest son was rejected for the first time that he interviewed for an internship. My second son was rejected the first time he interviewed for an internship. And so when I tell you they start at the bottom and they work their way up, they start at the bottom, they work their way up. And we made a decision. Someone said, "What's it like to work for your dad?" And I go, "I know my dad works here, but I've never seen him." They do not work for my dad. They do not work for their dad. I have no say into it. My oldest son just interviewed against someone for a role in another city where his girlfriend is. He didn't get it. So you earn it, and that's the only way up. And in my opinion, that is best both for the church and for them. They start at the bottom, they work their way up, and we do not interfere with any of it. All of the in-laws do not believe that. We can't move your stupid son-in-law back here. He got to earn his way back here, whatever. It's just the way it is. But it's complicated.
And I just want to add something that I thought you might say because it's, I think, helpful for the audience in that when we were in the season 2 years ago where Craig needed to come down out of and recover significantly, time off, and all the families wanting to talk church shop, And yes, so we had to create very hard boundaries to say, for this season, we cannot talk about church. And it was hard, but we said there's a strategic reason he had to recover. So
you find it hard to be the role of a dad as well as, I know they don't work for you, I heard that, but at the end of the day, the organizational dynamic and the family dynamic, and is there anything that you would say to pastor couples here who's have teenagers right now that are leaning into the church and maybe they're thinking about bringing them on staff, or is there anything that you would say?
I'd say, there's a ton I would say. One is your kids pay a higher price than you'll ever know, unless you're a PK. They pay an incredibly high price. So you want them to enjoy the blessings of being a part of the work of God. And so over and over and over again we say, can you believe that we get to be a part of what God's doing? We want to create a family where they feel incredibly blessed to be a part. And so like the last time I was here, I brought my son Stephen, and who else gets to come to Team Church Conference but you, and you get to sit, we want them to feel that. The next thing we want to do is we want the church to be there as early as possible. So we don't want it to be mom and dad's church, but whenever they were little, give them little assignments. Go pick up the trash, and you can get a Coke, because Amy will never let them have a Coke ever, but I would if they pick up the trash. What we want them to do is create ownership in the church so that it becomes their church early, not ours. And then what happened is, I've got 6 kids, and we've got 6 stories about how God used the church to help change their lives. Not us. We invest in the people who invest in our kids. And so when they're coming to church, the leaders are investing in them, they're serving and using their gifts, it's theirs. Then the problem is they don't want to go on vacation because they don't want to miss church. And that becomes a problem for us because we want to go away and they don't want to miss church. So when the church becomes theirs, not ours, and the way it becomes theirs is when they have ministry contribution to it. Then they have friends, and they have mentors, and then it just, they say, well, how did your kids not rebel against God? They almost couldn't, because they were planted so deep in the community. There were people all around them. If they tried to stray, and we had a couple of them kind of like try to lean, and like, oh, no, come back here, little sheep, because they're planted in the community, and the community did what the community of God should do.
That's beautiful. That's awesome. Troy, you want to?
Yeah, we got a question that came in from the audience, and I thought this would be a good one to create some tension-filled moments. How do you deal with disunity in leadership? How do you deal with disunity in leadership?
I'll let Bobby answer that one just for fun.
Over to you, Bobby.
Well, there isn't any room for us to not be unified, because any place that we're not shows itself magnified across the team. So speaking just about the four of us, Pastor Craig, myself, and the two others that kind of form that leadership team, there have been times where, we weren't aligned. There were moments that there was just some separation that happened, there's 5 of us at this time, there's 4 right now. We used to have a 5th, not because we got rid of the 5th, but he retired. But he might have been involved in some of the conflict back in that time as well. But there were times where because we weren't communicating well, because there might have been a little bit of trust that eroded, and there was, you could kind of say, fault on all sides. It came to sort of a boiling point. And we've tried to always be very transparent, and that I think is a kind of hallmark of our team. Sometimes that means there's excessive feedback, and sometimes it can be heated, feedback. But during that time, I would say that the one I'm particularly remembering of, it happened at my house, which is why I really remember it a lot. We had a moment where we all had some excessive feedback, that was taking place, and.
Yeah, that's how he brands it now.
Yeah,
but it was, I got different words for it. I'll tell you later.
Yeah. But basically, it was a very healthy process, even though it had a lot of risk to it, because it was one of those moments that looked like, if we don't work this out, this is going to be the end of this, And if it's the end of this, then it will have an impact on the church, and what that looks like, who knows? God's, obviously the church is resilient, but it involves humility on everybody's part. Pastor Craig really led with humility in the midst of it. Wasn't that he had done something wrong, or that, it was really that he just said, I need you to trust me.
It's good.
And if you can't do that, basically this is over. But he asked for forgiveness for the things that we were in conflict over, and led with it. And he led. That's really what it came down to. He led through it. But he allowed, as a leader, he's unique in that kind of, he allowed that whole thing to kind of become what it was, and for the communication to happen. Sometimes the concept of unity is to sort of push down the dissension, or to push down the disagreeing voice, to push down the thing that's like, you're not allowed to challenge this or talk about it or discuss it. So then what happens is it brews deep, right? It doesn't it's not discussed, but that's not how he's wired. He wants that to be talked about. He wants it to come out. Now, everything I've just described is happening in a room with the 4 of us. It's not happening like on this stage or some other place. And that's the only way it can happen, right? Good. Is you have to have that trust that's built through that process. But if it doesn't get handled well in that room, then it does bleed out, right? It does come out into other places, even inadvertently. And so that was several years ago. Pastor Craig, was it 12 years ago, that particular time, 13? And it was one of those kind of dark moments, but it was also probably the foundation of today.
Yeah, so what's special is Bobby's the least tenured of our directional leadership team. We have all been together for 20 some odd years, and they have not left. I have not fired them, and that's pretty amazing. You don't see that very often. And to get to that, what you need is you need mutual humility, meaning there have been many times where I've said I was wrong, I'm sorry, and they've done the same thing. You need to be able to fight and still be friends, meaning we've hooked it up and we're still friends. This is really, really important. You need people like Bobby who will tell people like me the truth, and you need people like me to listen and receive correction. Then when he does something great, like Create YouVersion, he needs to get all the credit for it. It's none of mine, it's all of his. Meaning, for him to stay, he needs to be able to create, and he needs to be able to fly, and he needs to be able to get credit for it. And I need to bless him to get more of that. And then, what's really, really important is if you're the senior leader, you have to allow for many things to be outside your preferences. And I cannot tell you how important this is. There are so many things I just don't love, but they're effective and they're important. And so we need to be unified around outcomes, but not around inputs. If I don't love the input, but the outcome's good and God honoring, then there may be a better way. And so you really have to have grace, humility, you be able to fight. And then I'm just telling you, some of you, your biggest hindrance is that you're just too dang controlling. Meaning you got to have things the way you want it. And you're limiting it. If everything's the way you want it, you're the limitation to what God wants to do. Because everybody's not like you. Outside your preferences, whenever you have the courage to say, yes, I don't prefer it, but I believe that God has put wise people around me, you know you're looking for progress when you can get there.
Yeah. But you do challenge the outcomes if it's not lined up.
Yes, if the outcome's not there, then I told you my preference was right. Yeah, the outcomes matter. Outcomes matter.
So let me ask you guys this: that as we talk about where they're at right now in this conversation, my mind is going to the DNA of the locations and the campuses and there's 1,000 staff members right now, right? How do you maintain, or how do you the culture aspect of Life.Church? How much do you care about that, and what do you do to duplicate it and keep it going?
I think of, Pastor Craig mentioned in his talk about that formula, about top leaders, all leaders, and repeat it. And I would say over the last 3 years, we've seen that even more. Like the amount of meetings that you're coming into just to get on the same page, where before maybe you wouldn't have done that. You're way more active, you're communicating. There's a visual I have in my mind. Is something came, I forget what was happening in the world, but something needed for our staff to be realigned on. It's been the last 3 years, and you're sitting on the roof of whatever vacation you guys were having, but you thought, I need to right now just bring clarity to the team, and you need to hear from their pastor. And so your willingness to shoot that video and communicate with clarity, because clarity is kind, and you provided that to us as a team, and as team leaders who are navigating those 1,000 team members. How am I caring for the 20, 30, 50, 80 that are having questions, and I don't, where's my, what does my pastor think? Because I want to make sure I'm underneath that. And you would provide those types of resources or come to that meeting. And those are the things that how I'm equipped as a leader to keep leading through that and promoting the unity that I know we're targeted towards.
I think it's a challenge for most of us, honestly. I found out as the church was growing that I could manage, or I could keep the culture on the platform because I saw it all the time. But the classrooms and the parking lot and all of that's not in my sight. And to think that you have 42 locations and 1,000, that's what's fascinating to me.
I think for me what it is feeling equipped to say, can I process, though, do I have the freedom to process a potential concern that may came up? Though I'm aligned with that, there's a room, Pastor Craig, Pastor Bobby, giving room for processing so that as we lead through it, we're equipped to then lead through that. So there's an extension of trust to just allow for questions. I'm aligned by default, like you asked about. I'm aligned, but I just want to process this so that as I step through and lead it, and I'm representing the leaders that are above me, I'm equipped to be able to do that well.
That's awesome. Do you want to add anything to that, Jenn? Or?
I think just even today we were on our way up here and we were talking just kind of openly about things we could do as a church, and could we do more. We don't do events at our church. We just do the things that we do. And Pastor Craig just simply said, you know, those things would be great, but we get back to the mission. We're building the church. And I think he is always so great to point all of us as a staff. We know that. Like, our mission is to reach people. And we're always pointing back to that, whether you're central and you're within reach of our DLT office, or if you're at a campus, or if you're at our Albany campus. Like, we all know what those things are, and that what our mission is. And I think that's really just what drives us.
I was just going to add on the how to keep the culture, because you're right. I mean, any organization is basically a sum of subcultures, right? Like it's all, there's not one unified culture anywhere. There's always subcultures. But how do you keep the subcultures as close to alignment as possible? The culture, it's all about where you start is one of the keys. We hire people that have the same values, right? So it doesn't mean that. Obviously, there's a lot of good people, and there's a lot of great people, a lot of great believers, but they don't fit on our team because our team has a certain set of values, a certain way we work, a certain way that we operate, and so we actually filter for those values. It's still a very diverse group of people with lots of different personality types, but they have the same values that we know fit in the culture. Obviously, they're bought into the mission of what we do. Anybody that isn't like bleeding mission that comes on our team isn't on our team. Right, that's just kind of a preference. So when you start there, then you're not immediately trying to figure out how I move people to get our culture and to understand our culture and to change to our culture and adapt to our culture, because it's their culture, right? It's kind of something that they actually already embrace and bought into. You still have to, as Pastor Craig talked about, remind them. We still have to not have people distracted. We still have to kind of continually reinforce it, which then is just a lot of communication. So when we talk about the church and we say, well, how do you have 44 locations that are all not just running off going wild? And the answer is, it really isn't possible, in the context. There's so much connectedness with how everyone communicates and how we communicate collectively that it would be obvious when something's off. Now, it doesn't mean that we haven't had problems.
Right.
And we haven't had even really key leaders, that just somehow the enemy worked in a voice in their head, and went a different direction. But in general, that's very, very much the exception in the years that we've been at church. I don't know, it's been 22 years or 3 years that we've had multiple campuses. But it's a high degree of connectedness, but also starting with a high degree of alignment so that you're not trying to figure out how to move somebody towards you.
And the vast majority of the team comes from within the church. They're raised up. And so if you love the culture of your church, you're better off raising them up. If you don't love the culture of the church, you might actually want to bring them in. Meaning, because sometimes you have to jumpstart it with some people from the outside. But if you've got a great culture and you raise them up, that's one of the ways to guard the culture.
So what do you look for? What do you look for when you say they're there or they're within? Are there some specific things that you and your lead team are looking for?
Yes. So behavioral values, we're going to look for teachability. We're going to look for humility. We're going to look for work ethic. We're going to look for people that we enjoy, just people that we like to be around. We need people that are flexible. And so we kind of go through, we've got values, and so we interview to those values. And then just, like the internship, whatever you want, when you got people serving and they're bought in, then they want to do the volunteer internship, then they want to do the paid, and so you walk them through step by step by step, and you just raise them up. The thing I'm most excited about is my son-in-laws and my kids. I would rather have them here being developed to become spiritual leaders than anywhere else in the world because of the systems in place. So how do you create a leadership development track? You don't. You create a culture. It's not a program, it's a culture that creates spiritual leaders.
It's very true. I think that was one of the biggest revelations for us recently with our leadership development program that I mentioned earlier, was that you search for what do you call this, but it can't be a class. It can't be thought of because it's an ongoing culture that's within the context.
So very simply, Jenn was at a campus for years. We do stage drills. So almost every week, she might get called on to get up and call for an offering. And so she would do it. Was it to make her great at calling for an offering? No, but when she would do it, everybody else would then give her feedback. What is the goal of that? Is it to create communicators? Sort of, but more so it's to create a culture where everyone values giving and receiving feedback. If they do it all week, every week, that place, then they know how to give and receive feedback everywhere else. If you want to create a culture that's growing and developing leaders, you have to train them to give and receive feedback. If you don't have something that gives and receives feedback every week, they're not going to know how to do it. So something that simple, everyone for years thought that's really to create stage communicators. And that's honestly what it started out to be, but we realized the primary benefit of it is teaching people to crave feedback and learn how to give it well.
Can I drill into that a minute? Who would give you the feedback?
The rest of the staff at the campus I was at. So anyone, even for the interns that were there for the summer, they were all encouraged to give feedback.
My guess is that's not very common out here.
And where does it start?
With the campus pastor?
Or in the organization, who needs to get feedback?
You.
Yeah, so how do I get feedback on a sermon now?
How do you get feedback?
Yeah.
You run a sermon multiple times and you have different questions that you ask, like, how ready is it?
So what I'll do beforehand is I'll get 3 to 5 people in how many times a week?
Oh
before a
gosh,
sermon?
8 times,
Probably
10?
8 different groups will come in. I'll talk it through on the ahead of time to get feedback, because I can't wait until I've done it to get feedback, because that's too late.
I'll tell you one thing he does that it's special to him too, is in that process, he oftentimes doesn't say, do you like this? He says, I have this option, this option, this option, which do you like the most? Right? And why? You know? And meaning he forces the feedback. Like, he doesn't just want you to go in there and say, that sounds good. Because a lot of people just do that, right? That's the easy, passive, I like it, it's good. Stay with it, you know? He's like, no, you have to help me choose between these 2 things, or these 3 things, or these options, because it forces real feedback, to come.
And then how high do you have to rank in the organization for me to call you in?
Anyone. You pull anyone in there.
But then how often will I call someone that's not good?
Oh, you won't. I'm an internal processor, and so if I'm slow to give feedback, so I'm not always in there.
Yeah. So I'll walk into a room with 8 people, and I'll pick 2 or 3, and the rest of them just sit there every time because they had 3 chances and they weren't good at it. And they just weren't.
You gotta come ready.
And so, but if you're good, you're good. If you're not, so rank does not matter. Talent matters, and that doesn't mean they're not great somewhere else. They're just not great at that. And so we call people in for special assignments anywhere all the time, and they're just good. Some of them really good. And some aren't, but they're good at other things. Yeah.
All right, we got another question from the audience, and I think it's a particular interesting question, Pastor Craig, based on the new formula of how you're cascading communication to the organization that you shared in your previous session. The question simply is, how do you practically let the best idea win? So the way I understood it, your new formula is... Sorry?
Great question.
Yeah, the new formula that you're using, what if that best idea would come from the all staff that's the last to hear of what we're doing? How do you process that?
So here's what we do, is we don't always let the best idea win. Because you're never quite sure, and if you are, you waited too long. And so we just let good ideas that we really believe in run. I would rather have a good idea with high buy-in than a great idea that took 6 months longer and medium buy-in. And we just talked about this backstage. We're talking about the order of something we're doing, and you said because I did something, he's going to do something similar, and he said, what'd you learn? And I said, what do you believe? And he believed something different. I said, if you believe something different, go with it. Because my idea with my faith is better than my idea with your lack of faith. Your idea with your faith is better than my idea with my faith. And so we don't have to wait for the best idea. We just need some good ones with really great people that believe in them.
I love that. That's so good. That really makes that, for me, I don't know how some of you, I'm assuming some of you pastors would feel the same way. But I feel like there's a tension a lot of times between being the leader and making decisions versus inviting feedback from other people. And what you just said is incredibly eye-opening for me, just in the sense that a lot of times I feel like I'm in that place where what they believe is what really matters more to me in that moment, rather than trumping or overriding their decision or their thought or their faith. So I just wanted to make sure that we all caught that, because I think sometimes being a leader to us means it has to be our idea, or we have to jump in the driver's seat. And what we're saying here, and said so well, is just that sometimes when you have team members who actually have a bend in a direction where they feel really confident and comfortable. Am I hearing you right? It's best to
let them run. Let them run. Don't sit around and wait for the best ideas, because you don't even know when you have them. But if you've got really godly people with a good idea and a lot of passion, let them run. Let them run.
Wow. I want to go back to Amy, if I could, for a minute. There's pastors' wives in the room right now who are, their natural instinct is being a mom and the home front. And yet they do feel somewhat, they are, just by the nature of it, they're part of leading the church. And so maybe you could just say, from your experience, how you navigated between your love for being at home and with the children versus potentially feeling the pull at the church.
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it, for pastors' wives? I would say that, kind of like Craig was saying, there's not a one right way, and we all have unique callings on our life and graces for that. And people think because we have this larger family and that I homeschool, that I think that is the best way for everybody, and I don't. I honestly think that we all have a call, and we need to hear God for that call. So it was seasonal for me, because I was called to homeschooling, that I wasn't as active on the front lines in the church. I served on the weekends, and we've been married 32 years, been in ministry the whole 32 years of staff ministry, and then senior pastors 26 plus years. And it was hard. It's very hard, especially when God's given you gifts and passion and you want to serve the church, but you feel, kind of underutilized, and you're at home and you're washing dishes and laundry and diapers and everything. And so it's hard, and it got old hearing people saying how fast the years would go by, the day is long, but the years are short. But here I am, an empty nester, and I thought I would never see the end of days with 6 going, taking them through, and just graduated our last kid. And it does go fast, but I would say that I started in afternoon ministry, kind of part-time ministry of women's ministry at the church, and then starting a nonprofit, Branch 15, 10 years ago. When our baby was about 7, 8 years old. And for me, that wasn't because, here's the age that the baby has to be before I could begin. It was because the Holy Spirit kind of lightning bolted my life and said, get up and go, and get up and go, woman. So start impacting. It was like time. And so you have to just wait for those Holy Spirit moments to say, now, go. And so I kind of, you don't want to assume like you're going to get the lightning bolt or something. And so I would just regularly check in with God and go, is what I'm doing now what I need to keep doing? Is what I need doing now what I need to keep doing? Just probably quarterly and annually. I'm on the worship team. Do I need to keep doing that? I'm doing this. Do I need to keep serving here? And if you continue to do that, and then God will faithfully direct your path. And so I've just had lots of seasons of different quantity at home and in the church, and now I'm blessed to be full on engaged in the ministry, and having time to love the kids.
Someone like me married to
And you
someone like
are.
her, my role is to protect her from the church's expectations so she can fulfill God's calling. So I don't care what they say.
Good.
What are you called to in this season? And the seasons change quickly. They change so quickly. They're all in diapers and you can't do nothing. Next thing you know, like you can do something. And, or you feel called to someone else helping with their diapers, whatever. It's your calling, and we are going to protect you from their expectations and celebrate whatever calling you have in this season. They're all important. And I want her to feel that every single time. And
Beautiful.
Yep. And if you're a pastor's wife and you never step foot on a stage, absolutely, you're valued and your calling is so impactful, and you cannot underestimate those the ministry that's not visible. It's so powerful. You being you and running your race in your lane is so powerful.
So this is a bit that's really beautiful, and I don't know you as well as I know Craig. I'm getting to know you better, but the thing I just want to put front and center in the middle of that is, have there been times through all of this where you felt any sort of competition with the church in terms of Craig? Craig's job is to protect you. He knows that, gets that. But has there ever been a time where being the mom, being at home, and then he's pulled on so much and he's not allowing expectations of you, but then are there times, am I being a little invasive here? I think it might be helpful for a mom today to hear you, if you've had that or you've experienced it, how you navigate.
I'm trying to answer it in a way that would be helpful, because I know that's real in ministry, and Craig has this high demand on his life and high call in his life that, but he has always prioritized me. And even in the seasons that were like crazy work storm and crazy busy schedule, he prioritized me. And so, am I telling the truth? He'll answer my phone call in a meeting, in the middle of a meeting. I don't take advantage of it, but so I don't think that's helpful, because I just think that's remarkable. But the thing about Craig that I have to watch out for is not allowing him to be a constant martyr, and that was part of him needing his healing, was that he felt like if he ever said "I can't" to me or the kids, that he was letting us down and he was failing as a husband and failing as a dad. And so we had to start telling him, you must protect yourself. And there's got to be some of you out there that are like this, that you will, die on the front lines as a martyr because people pleasing, you don't want to let anybody down. And so that's where, we had to work on that, which was, maybe more on the unusual side.
So good.
So.
You seem so sweet and.
She is, but she can hold her own.
I bet.
She didn't last as long by being just sweet.
I'd like to ask one more question. We were deliberate about building this panel out in a way to look like the churches that are represented here in the room. We have the lead pastors, we have folks on the lead team, and then other folks that are in pastoral roles that are overseeing areas of your churches. And so I would like to start with you, Pastor Bobby, and maybe we could work our way down. From the position that you sit in, speak to those folks that potentially are on a directional leadership team. What do you see churches and church leaders in your position, what are they focusing on, and what are the right things to be focusing on in a season like we're in today?
I think that what we heard even this morning is really important. I think there's too many churches and too many leadership teams that are really focused on the past. They're trying to get back to something that used to be. Anytime our mind is shifted backwards, it's never a good thing for the mission of the church. We have a phrase that we use, a thing that's actually on one of our walls that says we wholeheartedly reject the label of megachurch, that we're a micro church with a mega vision. And it's not a semantic thing, it's not just a word play, it's a really important thing that we remind everybody in our team about, every new team member that comes on. And what it means is that the mission of what we are called to do, the need that is in the communities that we serve, the digital reach that is within the reach of the digital footprint, that we have, is so vastly bigger than anything that's inside the church that it's silly to use the term mega, big, large, huge, whatever you want to call it, to talk about it. Because when you do that, when you see yourself as big, then you stop taking risks. You stop looking out. You stop being focused on the mission that's outside. And so we want to have a vision that's so big and so massive and so huge that we have nothing else to look at but the vision, and not the past and not the present. And so I think that's probably my biggest challenge to church leadership teams right now, is that you have to have a compelling vision that is articulated well, that your team knows, and you have to be laser focused on that. And that means you can't be looking back or even looking at what is today. You actually have to look forward.
You wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I was just going to say, that's from the guy who stepped back into YouVersion, and they were celebrating 5% growth, because when you got 700 million devices, if you grow by 5%, that's really big. He stepped in and said, this is unacceptable. The need is too great. This year, last year 5%, this year installs are up 81%. Okay, you don't have to clap for that. What I want you to see is when you come in and you say we're big and successful, 700 million, you're going to be happy with 5%. But when you say the need is great in this world, then 81% becomes possible. Okay, so that's illustrated what he just said.
Can we hear from you, Kyle, and you, Jenn?
My mind's going to the leader that maybe came on into the church and continued to get more responsibility, more leadership. My encouragement is just always check your motive. As you're given more maybe authority or answers, or like, okay, we're looking to you for the answer. Just check where your motive's at. What's driving that decision? What's driving that answer? And just always make sure, am I aligned? Am I aligned? I know that's something that is a constant posture I'm having is, am I aligned? Not like, I'm not always asking the question about culturally, because I feel pretty centered on that, but just, is this aligned with where our focus is right now? Even as we identify those three things Pastor Craig talked about, is this the top priority right now? Is this something that I have a personal drive for? Is my motive a little off, that I want this, or is this best for the church? So that's just as you're getting more, and that becomes more of the types of decisions you're making, because a lot of good things, like these are all good, what's the right one? And so that's kind of my mindset right now, is just taking on more things to help build the church.
Very good.
Yeah, I think for me, I sit in a little bit different seat with leading Pastor Craig's office. And so for me, it's always just in a posture of what can I do that will take things off of his plate? What am I good at that I can just take off of his plate and he doesn't even have to think about? Because I'm definitely gifted in different areas administratively and just forward thinking, and his schedule of trying to just think, what are the things that only he can do, and I want him to do those things, and I want to take everything else from that. And from Pastor Amy with her team, we just want to take all of that so he can continue just to preach and reach the world. And so that's where I'm kind of always thinking and just sitting in that posture. Same with Kyle, of just how keeping those things focused. And because my role can be so administrative, there are those things that I need reminders of, those stories of that one person. Like this week, I got a story of this one lady that was impacted from one of our messages, and I just wanted to tell our whole team about it, because it was like, I need to remember that one. What is her name? Her name was Darlene. Her life was changed, and because of the seat I get to sit in, she's forever, going to spend her life with Jesus.
Wow. So I love what both of you, that's really, we could linger there and hang on. I want to just take a minute and say, when you talk about motive, and I think it really goes along with what you're saying, Jenn, and I think sometimes people, even in our church, I'll just start there, they'll say, Pastor, what can I do for you? That's really it freezes you, you know? And then you kind of can quickly, just being honest, you can say, well, is their motive, like they didn't go ask this other person or another team member, they actually found their way to me. And I just want to use that example to say that how do you actually know how to add value without like asking him? How do you know? How would a person in this room, what would they do, observe, or how would they find that out?
I think he's really great at communicating like where he is emotionally. He's very open with our team and those that are close to him of like if he's having a hard day, because he's a human. He's not just a pastor. And so I think knowing that, I can then anticipate like, hey, they may have a lot going on at home, so we can do this for him, or I can take this off his plate, or whatever that is, from little things to big things, and even having him things prepared to come out here to be with you guys, and then the summit that we'll be at in a couple days. It's just, I think because he is so great at communicating with us, it helps us set him up for success, and just know how to support him best.
I think understanding his why, like Jen said, he's going to have, and Pastor Robbie, ups and downs of things that they're having to navigate in that moment. But going back to like almost like the last point of guidance you gave was this, and you said at the core, this is what you desired. And so instead of every decision saying, hey, are you still okay with this? Like just assume and know that there's trust there. He talked about like know that there's trust there. And if the course needs to change, he'll let us know. Otherwise, we're going to stay a course. We're going to stay this way and not burden him. And know that if let's say I make a decision and it's like, oh, he did have a different desire, I was operating out of the right posture and my motive was proper, it was aligned. So then if that conversation of, hey, we need to course correct a little bit here, awesome, I stand ready to receive, okay, let's adapt. Instead of this like, hey, you made the wrong choice, I've been staying on the course, you guided us the last time. So I'm not every answer is back to him to answer. So
yeah, I want to add just a little bit to this because I'm actually afraid that what you're hearing is way overvaluing my importance. And I'm really afraid of that because I am not as important as what you're hearing. Like literally they're saying, how do we take off Craig? That's kind of their job. There's hundreds of people on staff, that's not their job. And my importance is not measured by what happens in my presence. What's really is important is what happens in my absence. Okay, and so really, this is not an accurate view. This makes me look way more important than I am in the organization. What do I do that matters? 3 times a year, I speak to the whole staff. 3 times a year, I speak to all the campus pastors. 3 times a year, I speak to all the campus pastors and CGLs, and then I send some videos out. So I'm going to try to lead through in that few of touches. Everything else is going to be led through leaders. And my philosophy is different. When we went and visited a campus last weekend, I did not get up on the stage at the end. I applaud 1,000% the reason why Kevin would, because he wants to display he's in the game, because his heart's in the game, because he wants to be there. In my context, it's better if I don't. I've never one time ever in the history of our church ever stood on another stage on a weekend of any Life.Church campus, because the moment I do, I devalue the local leader and said, move over, junior pastor, the main show's in town. So I don't stand up, I don't come in, I stay in the lobby and I greet people and hug people and pray for people and leave, and do that over and over again. So, when Bobby could fill in any blanks, you would be shocked at what I don't know, what I don't do, what I don't accomplish. We're just talking about my little world, and my little world is a big part of it, but it's not nearly as important. The team we have, the people deep, I could honestly put 500 of our staff members up here and be proud of them. I could put another 200 up here and not be embarrassed, and then I could put a few going, yeah, let's not have them. Yeah. but I don't want you to hear this is not centered around me. This is a team. This is God-ordained people, and there's been too much about me, and that is a mistake. The strength of this is not me. The strength of this is the team of God-ordained people that God has brought here. I think you can see it here, but there are dozens upon dozens of people that I would put up here all day long, and I could stay home and you probably get more value out of them. You get more truth like that because they know things. I go, I don't know, ask Bobby. Okay. So just please hear me. Your strength is not based on your leadership. Your strength is based on the people that you empower.
Very good. And would you say, let me ask you this question, your value toward the staff, I noticed a while ago when you were talking about feedback, getting feedback, you said there's 2 or 3 in the room that I know give good feedback. Is it accurate to say that when you sit or you watch or you see all these things happening outside yourself, that as they function and flow and do things that you're like really happy about and thankful for, that your value for them increases?
My value increases more for people every day, all the time, no matter what. I mean, they said yes to this. They work crazy long hours. Their kids make massive sacrifices. They love the church. They love Jesus in the church more than anything else. I'm indebted to them. I'm indebted to the volunteers who serve everything. Can you believe that people come and give their time here? Like, it's just, I'm just telling you, it's the longer I do this, the more I realize when Paul says I must decrease that he may increase, it's like I have to be less and less and less and less and less and less and less. So don't walk away hearing Craig does this, Craig does that, Craig's great. It's more what happens away from me through people that really matter. I just want you to hear, Bobby, tell them to believe that, please. Help me.
I think they understand, because anybody that has the posture that you have about it understands that what you just heard him say is why God blesses what we do and why he blesses leadership. So I think
it's great people. Why would I ever stand up on a stage when God has ordained someone else to do that role before I got there and after I got there? Seriously, that's your flock to lead. You're the one that's going to get, if it doesn't go well, I'm calling you, or someone's calling you, and so I'm not going to get up in your way. God chose you to be there to do it. And so we really have to believe in people. You have to believe in them. And then when you do, they'll be like Bobby. Bobby could go create and build any business he wants, but when he can create and build kingdom stuff, why would he have to leave? And so we want to give people freedom to use their gifts. We want to brag on them, believe in them. We want to love them. We want to pastor them. We want to take care of them. We want to bless them financially. We want to celebrate them. We want to keep them around for a long time. And man, on a hard day is hard. But a hard day in ministry is better than a bad day anywhere, in a good day anywhere else. We get to do this with people we love. It's a great thing. And we get to be here today talking about Jesus in the church with a guy who's only 10 years older than me, but we don't want to be like that guy on the airplane going, rah, 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 rah. But we want to be like you. Married, 37 years in the same place, building leaders. That's who we want to be like. I'm telling you, don't look on Instagram at whoever's the newest, hottest thing. We aspire to plant roots, be there deep, be there long, make good, committed relationships last a long time. That is worthy of celebrating.
Thank you. Now, those of you who are headed into the next sessions, or all of you would be, I guess, I just want to tell you that we're gonna talk behind Pastor Craig's back to these two, and then here in the leading second, right, that's here in the auditorium, will Pastor Bobby be in here as well?
Pastor Bobby and Pastor Brandon with leading second. So any second chair leader, you're gonna stay here in this room, and any lead pastor, you're gonna go out these doors to the right for our chapel. We're gonna continue this conversation.
Okay. Sounds great.
Can we thank the Life.Church team for this incredible insight? Thank you. Thank you.